I've been invited because I did such a good impression of Macaulay Culkin off Home Alone 1. Off to do the paper round afterwards and so on. But friends, just want to start by saying this. To speak on this platform with such heroes, with such fighters, at this, the greatest day in the calendar of our movement, while there is no greater honour, no bigger privilege, no prouder moment. And friends, when we hear about tradition, it's always often about kings and queens and empire and elites. But we remember today that we've got our traditions too. Traditions of ordinary working people, often faceless, forgotten, ignored. Those who built this country, those who keep it ticking every single day, those who struggled and fought the wealthy and powerful, and at such cost. And it's a lesson that is passed down from generation to generation. My great-granddad was a railwayman, and he downed his tools in the general strike of 1926 in solidarity with the miners. And like hundreds of thousands of others, he had his wages docked as a punishment, and I'll tell you this, I still intend to get revenge for him at some point. Friends, his story when it was told to me was an eternal reminder of our eternal principle that an injury to one is an injury to us all. That drives us every single day as a movement. Now, I was born, you might not believe it because some of you think I'm 10, but I was born in Sheffield at the height of the miners' strike, and my parents threw themselves into supporting the mining communities as they were hammered by the disgrace that was Thatcher's administration. My brothers were babysat by striking miners. My dad himself was at Orgreave. He watched policemen charging miners on horseback. He said it was like the War of the Roses, a medieval battle. But he saw brave, courageous men backed to the hilt by women of backbone and determination, the real Iron Ladies, who were fighting for their jobs, their families, their communities and their futures. And as I say, a day like this is about celebrating traditions and history and heritage. But that's not simply because of nostalgia. It's not about getting dewy-eyed about glorious victories and defeats. It's to inspire us in the months and the years ahead. It's a reminder that change happens not through the goodwill and generosity of those above, but through the struggle and sacrifice of those below. Like the Chartists, like the suffragettes, like the early trade unionists, like those who fought for ethnic minorities and LGBT people, like the families of Hillsborough, all of those who were attacked and smeared in their day, who were ridiculed, who were persecuted, who stood their ground and fought and won. And that is something we draw inspiration from today. And here's the thing, workers' rights, a national health service, a welfare state that protects us all that was won for us with such sacrifice, at such cost, and it is not for us to let it disappear forever. I'll say this, like our ancestors, we too must take a stand. I'll tell you why. We have to take a stand because working people, supermarket checkout workers, call centre workers, nurses, bin collectors face the biggest cuts in their pay packets since records began. Because 500,000 people are now dependent on the only booming industry in this country, food banks. This is the 7th richest country on earth, and apparently we can no longer afford to feed our poorest people. What an absolute stain on austerity Britain. We have to take a stand because disabled people are being stripped of their support, driving them into fear, despair and misery. We have to take a stand because our public services are being sold off to the profiteering vultures circling above our NHS, our Royal Mail, by a government that didn't even have the guts to ask for our permission. Friends, we stand here because of the million young people out of work who face a future of debt and insecurity, because of the 5 million people trapped on social housing waiting lists who don't have a secure or affordable home. And with such injustice, with such absolute horrendous injustice out there, no wonder there is such anger. And here's the thing, ever since this government's come to power, it's tried to redirect that anger away from those who cause this mess at the top to people's neighbours down the streets, the working poor against the unemployed, non-disabled people against disabled people, private sector workers against public sector workers, those living here against immigrants. And each time the argument is the same. You've been mugged, so your less deserving neighbours should be mugged as well. The politics of divide and rule. And that is why as a movement, we've got to give unity. And here's the thing, there's no shortage of anger out there. There's no shortage of fear. But there's one thing missing, and that is hope. And it was Harvey Milk, the civil rights campaigner, who said this: I know you cannot live on hope alone, but without it, life is not worth living. And this is the point. It doesn't matter how angry people get. It doesn't matter how scared they get. Without hope, they don't fight back. They become resigned. They yell at their TV sets, but they don't resist. And that is why we have to give people hope. And here is how we do it. We go out and we offer solutions, an alternative to the catastrophe of austerity. People have every right to be furious about the £23 billion being spent on housing benefit. But we should say this: that's not lining the pockets of the tenants. It's lining the pockets of wealthy landlords charging extortionate rents. So our argument is clear. We say control rents and let councils build housing, creating jobs, stimulating the economy and bringing down the 5 million strong social housing waiting list. Friends, tax credits are a lifeline for millions. But let's be clear about what they are. They're a subsidy for low pay because bosses aren't paying their workers properly. So we demand a living wage, no ifs and no buts. Friends, we have so many people out of work. Over in Hull, a few weeks ago, 650 people applied for just one job. That's the reality. So we say, let's have an industrial strategy to create hundreds of thousands of renewable energy jobs, taking on the environmental and the jobs crisis in one blow. And we say this as well about the banks. We, the people, bailed them out, but we nationalised the debt and privatised the profits. So let's demand we, the people who bailed them out, should have control of those banks to rebuild our economy. And finally, we hear about benefit fraud every single bloody day in our media. And it does exist. It's worth about 1.2 billion. It's less than 1% of welfare spending. But we very rarely hear about tax avoidance by the people at the top. £25 billion every single year. So let's demand this. We demand the law is changed with one principle: to say to the wealthy, the Amazons, the Starbucks, those who refuse to pay their taxes, you will pay every single penny that you owe. That is what we must demand. And friends, some of you with all of these injustices and such, and what I think are just obvious answers, think, where is the Labour leadership in all of this? And again, bit of history, this is what today of course is all about. But we remember why the Labour Party was founded. Because the wealthy, the people at the top, they had their own parties, the Liberals and the Conservatives. And the idea was to give working people a political voice. Keir Hardie was one of the first socialist MPs elected. He turned up to the House of Commons in the traditional working class dress of the time. The policeman who met him at the House of Commons said, "Are you here to work on the roof?" And he said, "No, I'm here to work on the floor." And that was the beginning of a generation of people got into Parliament to speak out. But friends, the reality is this: the Labour leadership is not offering a coherent alternative as the pockets of working people are empty day after day. And we have to say, firstly, we've seen this last 2 weeks, this attack, this coordinated, concerted attack by the media. They will not be satisfied until the trade unions are driven out of political life altogether. And that is why we must stand firm. But friends, this is where we come in. I just want to end with this. We need a movement that unites all of us. against austerity. That's why I'm backing the People's Assembly, a coalition of unions representing private and public sector workers, labour activists, the Green Party, disabled activists, people fighting for young people and elderly people and others. We've had over 4,000 people who came to London just last month. We've had meetings across the country. We're building up for a demonstration on the 29th of September when the Tories have the absolute cheek to invade my city, Manchester, and we will give them a warm welcome, I can assure you of that. But we also need to tap in to this country's proud tradition of peaceful civil disobedience, which is why on the 5th of November we'll have a day of action right across the country. So I just want to leave you with this. Let's learn from our history. Let's remember the struggle and sacrifice. And let's remember always this. It is possible to fight back. We don't have to resign ourselves to how things are. We can stand up for each other and ourselves and fight for a tomorrow that is better than it is today. We stand together. We fight together. Friends, we will win this together.
Johnson is a threat to national security, then every single man and woman here today, we are all a threat to national security too. Now there's been a lot of talk already about Margaret Thatcher's funeral, and I know there's been a lot of rewriting of history, reopening of old wounds. And my brother was a miner on strike in 1984 too. But what I will say is this: she may be gone, but we're still here. It's great to share the platform with Len and Bob too. Never mind Papi Cisse and Adam Johnson. These are the best two left-wing strikers in the North East today. And I just want to be upfront about this one too, because I want to say to our teachers, to our postal workers, to our rail workers, our civil servants, our firefighters and our factory workers, wherever unions want it, wherever workers vote for it, the TUC will back you on strike action, up to and including coordinated action. I've got a few words to say about the politics of the last week too, because the Parliament and in the right-wing media, unions and our members, our leaders, have been under attack. Not for the first time, no doubt not for the last, but there are those who want to challenge the fundamental right of working people to have a political voice. David Cameron and his cabinet of multi-millionaires are worried that working people have been getting above our station. He thinks that our members, nurses, shop workers, refuse collectors, we don't even have the right to a political opinion. He seems to believe that politics is just for posh people. And never mind breaking the link, he wants to break our spirit. But when it comes to funding political parties, it's time to set the record straight. Union money is the cleanest cash in politics today. Our members vote for it, our unions declare it, and what's more, unlike those parasites in the City of London, our members earn it.
To be on this platform today, speaking to my kind of people, ordinary working class people. Thatcher, and yes, Margaret Thatcher destroyed the mines, but she never destroyed the miners and their families, and she certainly didn't destroy the spirit. Look at this turnout today. It's unbelievable. They're already talking the numbers down. They're saying there's less than 150,000 here. Less than 150,000. I've only got one thing to say to that. That's my arse. But listen, you've got some wonderful speakers on the platform who know what the ins and outs of politics. I'm here today to ask you a simple favour, as one working class lad to the working class community of this county. I want you to sign this petition for me, which is going round. There's people in the crowd now, and I just want to give you 5 minutes, that's all, of what it's all about. In 1973, we were sentenced to jail terms for going on strike in the one and only building strike there's ever been. But through it, we learned that our telephones were tapped as far back as that. A couple of months ago, I was informed by Scotland Yard itself that my phone had been hacked by the Murdoch press. Now, I don't know what they're frightened of. I'm a City and Guilds plasterer and a bit of an actor on the stage. What the hell are they bloody frightened of? But let me tell you this. It's 40 years since we were sent to jail. 40 years. And we didn't go to jail on a unanimous verdict. We went on a majority verdict because the jury was told by the court usher that if we got found guilty, we were only going to get fined 50 quid and the unions were going to pay the £50. Well, let me tell you something. We were abandoned by the unions in 1973. But I'm glad to say now we've got some real working class leaders of the trade union movement, and I don't think that could happen again. I think if the lads get in struggle, I think they'll have all the support in the world that they need from this leadership. But let me tell you, after 30 years, the papers are supposed to be released under the Freedom of Information Act. And when we applied, they wouldn't release them. And when we said why, they said because it would be a threat to national security. A threat to national security for going on strike. It's now 40 years, and so we approached the government again and said, let's have the papers now. It's 40 years, and we got a letter back from Michael Gove saying that Kenneth Clark in December had signed an edict to say that the papers appertaining to the trial, the case and the convictions will not even be looked at again until the year 2021. What are they hiding? What have we done? Let me tell you something. On the day we went picketing, we were accompanied by 80 policemen. 80 policemen were with us all the time. Where the alleged offences took place, no one was charged, no one was arrested, and not a single name and address was taken. But 5 months later, they came up with this thing about you've done this, you've done that, and the other. Well, there's a lady on the platform there. I call her the ferret, because she will get where bloody Epsom salts won't. And she's been to the archives, and she's discovered papers which should make us ashamed to be British, because they're appertaining to the case, but they're stamped top secret, confidential, not to be seen by the members of the public, all because we went on strike. So when they wouldn't release the papers, Eileen said, well, what we'll do, we'll get an e-petition. All we want is 100,000 signatures, and that's got to get raised in Parliament and discussed. So we went to see Len McCluskey, we went to see Bob Crow, we went to see Mark Soetta, and within a few days, the figures had shot up, or so we thought. They stopped. So when Eileen approached Downing Street and said, what's wrong with the petition? They said, well, to be honest with you, over 58,000 people have signed, but 42,000 of them have made a little mistake, so they don't count. 42,000 out of 58. So we went on. So what we decided to do now is we're going to get 100,000 paper signatures that can't be fiddled. But let me tell you about the e-petition. We got an IT specialist to monitor it because they weren't going up even after Eileen got in touch with them. And he phoned her up one night and he said, listen, you're not going to believe this. I'm an IT specialist. I've been doing it for years. I've been monitoring the e-petition. The figures are going down. I said, it's a pity it's not inflation. So as I say, listen, we've got a battle on here. We've got a struggle. It's like Hillsborough. They had 2 enquiries where they said, we've looked at everything. There's not a stone being left unturned. They've looked at nothing. They've got some of it out now, and there's still loads and loads and loads of documents to be put in front of the general public, because there's a cover-up after cover-up after cover-up. And what I'm saying here today is that we know that McAlpine was responsible for what went on in 1973. And he was also responsible, the McAlpines, for the instigation of the blacklist. And Eileen found a document going right back of the blacklist with a list of names on that long, and mine was on it, but mine was the only one with my national insurance number on it. So there's no way that they're going to give us an easy ride. So what I'm saying here today is, thank you very, very much for this invitation. You're our last hope, really. There are so many people here today. We only want 25 or 30% of you to sign this petition. These lads on the platform have agreed to march on Downing Street with us and stuff it up Cameron's nose. So do us a favour, sign the petition and let's get justice for the Shrewsbury 24.
Up is off!
Comrades, it's a fantastic pleasure to be speaking here for the full time at the Durham Miners' Gala. Fantastic as well that the old Cav Thatcher is dead and I'm speaking here rotting underneath. And, you know, my good mate Ricky Tomlinson said about the old bill, they can't count. Well, they never can count. I feel sorry for Len McCluskey. They bring the same copper to investigate the Falkirk by-election. They got no chance of calculating what took place up there. Because the reality is this, brothers and sisters, all these banners that have been marching down here today with the slogans on them, unity of strength, fellowship of life, solidarity, are not just bits of words that we use over rhetoric, it's things that we've learned over 150 years. You see, over 100 years ago, when this Durham Miners' Gala was operating, this organisation, the Durham Miners, with my union, was affiliated to the Liberal Party. We was affiliated to the Liberal Party because we believed that the Liberal Party was the party for workers. But we broke with the Liberals, and a party of Labour was set up over 100 years ago. You know, Keir Hardie, on those banners that people praise, went into the Scottish coalfields and he was told that he was a splitter. He had stones thrown at him. They said that he should stay in the Liberal Party and turn the Liberal Party into a party of what they wanted. Well, brothers and sisters, what trade unions do in their own organisations a matter for them. But we got expelled from the Labour Party 8 years ago for one reason and one reason only.
that we decided to give money to MPs that wanted to fight for working people, and we was fed up of giving money to MPs that was putting the boot into working people with a red rosette on. When Thatcher died, I thought for a sudden her ghost to come back this week. All of a sudden, Tony Blair popped up on the TV. They wheeled him out. How low can you get to talk about Blair coming up there, a liar, coming onto the TV and telling us what's best for working men and working women? Someone said to me, would you feel safe with Tony Blair? I'll feel more safe in a telephone box with a boa constrictor than I will with him. And the reality is simple regarding what's taking place, is that we need policies out there that support working men and working women. When we talk about struggle, we have to recognise the fact about what struggle takes place. You know, struggle's not just about the ballot box. Struggle's about winning the hearts and minds of people. You see, Nelson Mandela, that fantastic leader in South Africa, for over 24 years, while he remained in prison, could have come out and bended his knee. They asked him just to come out and say he was against what the ANC was doing and he would be released. But you see, Mandela understood that while he remained in prison, he wasn't the prisoner. The real prisoners was the South African apartheid government, who he got publicity for to say what was taking place about wrongs and rights of someone for the colour of your skin. Now the reality is, brothers and sisters, is that the Labour Party, the Liberals and the Tories, their policies are near enough identical. I challenge anyone to tell me, do they support privatisation, all three of them? And they do. Do they support keeping the anti-trade union laws? They do. Do they support illegal wars around the world? They do. And do they support the European Union? They do. By the way, I'm not opposed to Europeans. I'm opposed to the European Union, whose device is for the bosses to make bigger profits at the expense of working people. Don't listen to those people who say that you're against the European Union. You're a UKIP supporter. The UKIP, we know what they are. They're Tories. They support privatisation. I'll tell you what, I've got more in common with a Chinese labourer than I have with a City of London stockbroker. So therefore, brothers and sisters, I raise the question with you. If the Labour Party today was formed in its present style, would you join them as an organisation? Of course you won't. You want a party of going out there that's going to fight for you. And what we really want at the end of the day, brothers and sisters, is pretty simple, isn't it? We ask for a job for every single person. We ask for decent pay. We ask for a national health service. We ask for comprehensive education. We ask for decent pensions. We ask for a world that lives in peace. And all of them can't happen under capital. You see, in my rule book's clear. When we formed the Labour Party over 100 years ago, my union, that it wasn't just a question of policies that we was against. It was the old position of capitalism. Capitalism has failed. It fails to give jobs. It falls into social deprivation. It fails to give housing. I never set up just a tweak about capital. I want to smash capitalism and every rotten thing that it stands for. Therefore, brothers and sisters, today, my members in Churchill Cleaners on poverty pay go into a 2-week strike, battling for pay and conditions. Yes, we've got some great Labour MPs, and I'll be on the doorstep for my mate John McDonnell, knocking on the door for him when he's up for election. But where's the rest of them? Where's the rest of them by the side of you? They say there's nothing they can do, that austerity's here to stay. Well, of course there's something to do. It ain't unusual about nationalisation. Nationalisation was a Tory concept originally. Thatcher, in 1970s, when she was the industry minister, she nationalised Rolls-Royce. Oldest trick in the book. You bring a company in, you give it tax from the people, and you give it back to your friends in the city. Why is it that we only can talk about nationalisation of companies that are going bankrupt? If you can bring the lame ducks in, let's bring the white swans back, the banks, the insurance companies, and the commanding heights of society to use that money for the benefit of people. So therefore, brothers and sisters, my position's absolutely clear, my union is absolutely clear, that we want a party of Labour. The reality is, this ain't going to stop about opting into the Labour Party. The Tories will now put on the agenda that you're going to have to opt into any political fund whatsoever, because they don't want you to have no political representation. Just like the banner down the road with an advocate on the front. When miners years ago couldn't read and write, they employed an advocate to speak on their behalf. Then they become representatives of themselves and then become a union. Therefore, we want a party that's going to roll its sleeves up in Parliament and an organised militant trade union in the workplace that's going to fight for working people. The attacks on Len McCluskey this week is an absolute disgrace. Don't feel paranoid, Len. He wanted to speak on the platform with me, never mind just attacking you. To say that you're going to bring a copper in, or you're part of the family, have a row with your missus and bring the police in, I've never known anything like it in my life. But meetings like this, brothers and sisters, this is what it's all about. Meetings like this give us the reaffirm our commitment to the belief, to what we stand for, industrial trade unionism, for what we stand for. And I'll tell you what we stand for, brothers and sisters. We stand for a concept which is called socialism. I'm proud to be a socialist, and I'm proud to be a militant, and I'm proud to be on the side of working men and working women.
Thank you.